Senator from South Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me begin by thanking my colleagues that are here today, the Senator from Tennessee, the Senator from Louisiana, and the Senator from Connecticut for the hard work that they're doing to create new legislation that will improve the health care of Americans in the future. But I come here today as well to speak about legislation which has already passed that was designed to improve the health care of veterans across the entire United States. I come here today to speak in favor and in support of the Emergency Care Fairness Act of 2009, which recently has come under attack by the VA and legislation introduced on this floor. In 2009, the 111th Congress passed the Emergency Care Fairness Act to fix a very big loophole in the law which hurt our nation's veterans. Prior to 2009, the VA was not authorized to cover any costs of emergency room care at non-VA facilities for veterans who were covered by any type of third-party insurance. That meant that if a veteran had a limited insurance policy that covered even $1 of an emergency room bill, the VA would not pay a dime to cover costs that were not paid for by their insurance. Meanwhile, if a veteran had no insurance and was rushed to the emergency room, the VA was authorized to cover all of his or her costs. Clearly, this made no sense. Under the system, the VA penalized veterans for owning third-party insurance, particularly Medicare. Leaders in both the House and the Senate got to work to fix this issue and introduced bills in both chambers of Congress to allow the VA to pay the remaining balance of emergency care after a veteran's third-party insurance was applied. This made good common sense. At the time, the chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, Senator Daniel Akaka of Hawaii, stated the following on this very floor, and I quote, "The bill I am introducing would amend current law so that a veteran who has outside insurance would be eligible for reimbursement in the event that any outside insurance does not cover the full amount of the emergency care." End of quote. Mr. President, congressional intent does not get any clearer than that. While the Emergency Care Fairness Act was being considered in committee, the VA is on the record as having supported the intent of the bill. Everything was going according to plan, and the President signed the bill into law in February of 2010. The problem arose when, after the law was passed, the VA implemented a new regulation which continued to deny veterans legitimate emergency room claims. Despite having previously supported the Emergency Care Fairness Act, the VA reversed course and elected not to comply. This went on for 6 years, and hundreds of thousands of veterans had their emergency room claims denied by the VA. It was not until a veteran from Minnesota named Richard Stabb had a heart attack in 2015 that the VA's illegal regulation was challenged in court. Mr. Stabb was rushed to the emergency room following his heart attack and accrued $48,000 in medical expenses. Because he carried limited Medicare insurance, the VA denied his claim for reimbursement, as it had done for so many veterans, even though his Medicare didn't come close to covering the cost of his treatment. Mr. Stabb sued the VA, and in April of this year, his case was heard by the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. After hearing the case, the court unanimously ruled in Mr. Stabb's favor and ruled that the VA was in violation of the law by denying his claim, and specifically ruled that the VA's regulation was in violation of congressional intent of the Emergency Care Fairness Act. Part of the court's ruling stated, and once again I quote, "Therefore, it is clear from the plain language of the statute that Congress intended the VA to reimburse a veteran for that portion of expenses not covered by a health plan contract." End of quote. This was a huge win for veterans. Mr. President, unfortunately today, the VA has appealed the decision of the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. This is an egregious dereliction of duty and a clear effort to avoid complying with the original intent of Congress back in 2009. Just since the VA's appeal of the ruling, over 100,000 veterans have been their claims have been put into a pending status. That equates to thousands upon thousands of veterans who are waiting today for the VA to help them pay their bills. Mr. President, it is a fact that those most affected by the VA's non-compliance with the Emergency Care Fairness Act are our elderly veterans, many of whom are living on fixed incomes and have limited resources to pay medical bills. Often, these veterans find themselves dealing with collection agencies as a result of emergency care received in the community. In an era where we know that more than 20 veterans commit suicide every day, with 65% of those veterans aged 50 years or older, this is simply unacceptable. I'd like to tell a short story about a constituent of mine who is a veteran that was supposed to be covered by the Emergency Care Fairness Act. His name is Mr. Alfred Dimmick. Mr. Dimmick is 90 years old, and he served in the Army Air Corps during the Korean War. He flew over 100 combat missions during the war and earned a Bronze Star and Distinguished Flying Cross for his heroic service. Mr. Dimmick receives all of his medical care at the VA as a disabled veteran, but also carries Medicare Part A, as does nearly every American over the age of 65. During a one-month span earlier this year, Mr. Dimmick collapsed twice in the middle of the night while he was in the bathroom. One time, he hit his head and was bleeding. Because his 85-year-old wife was unable to pick him up, she appropriately called 911 each time. In both instances, the ambulance took him to Rapid City Regional Hospital, even though he requested to go to the Fort Meade VA Hospital, the VA facility where he normally receives all of his care. The paramedics did not want to take him on the 25-mile drive to Fort Meade because they feared he was having a heart attack and he may not survive even that short of a drive. As a result of these two incidences, Mr. Dimmick's emergency room bills totaled over $44,000. Now, after Medicare Part A paid its share, Mr. Dimmick still owes Rapid City Regional nearly $10,000. The VA has denied Mr. Dimmick's claims to cover this amount because he, like nearly every American, is eligible for Medicare Part A. The Dimmicks do not own a home. They live in an apartment. They live solely on their Social Security and on Mr. Dimmick's VA disability payments. If the VA continues to deny his claims, the Dimmicks have no ability to pay these medical bills. Today, Mr. Dimmick is in hospice care with stage 4 kidney disease and liver disease. His daughter writes to me that even as frail and ill as Mr. Dimmick is, he wants to know before he dies that his bills are covered so that he can have peace. Mr. President, it was veterans like Mr. Dimmick in Rapid City, South Dakota, that Congress intended to help when it passed the Emergency Care Fairness Act in 2009. Today, I call on the VA to drop their appeal of the court's ruling and begin writing new regulations that comply with the law as Congress intended to properly reimburse our veterans for their emergency room care. Now, I fully understand that there is a cost associated with this course of action. Taking care of our veterans and complying with the law in this case is not a cost issue. I believe it is a moral, and in this case, it is also a legal issue. Complying with the intent of the Emergency Care Fairness Act is also simply the right thing to do. Should the VA agree, I stand ready to support them in their efforts to take care of our veterans and to get them medical care which they need, both from the VA and in the private sector. Now, while we certainly have a long way to go to fix VA health care, I fully believe that implementing the Emergency Care Fairness Act as it was intended is a step in the right direction. I look forward to working with the Secretary of the VA and my colleagues on the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee on a broad range of initiatives to continue to improve health care for our veterans. It is my goal to keep the veterans at the center of all that we do. I urge my colleagues to join me in standing up for our veterans and supporting the Emergency Care Fairness Act of 2009. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor